Isaiah chapter 35, Highway in the Wilderness. The wilderness and dry land will be glad. The desert will rejoice and blossom like a lily. It will blossom profusely and will rejoice with joy and with singing. Will be given the glory of Lebanon, the splendor of Carmel and Sharon. They will see the glory of Adonai, the splendor of our God. Strengthen the limp hands, make firm the wobbly knees. Say to those with anxious heart, be strong, have no fear. Behold your God, vengeance is coming. God's recompense, it is coming. Then he will save you. Then the eyes of the blind will be opened, and the ears of the deaf unstopped. And the lame will leap like a deer, and the tongue of the mute will sing. For water will burst forth in the desert, and streams in the wilderness. The parched land will become a pool, the thirsty ground springs of water, and the haunts of jackals where they rest. Grass will become reeds and rushes. A highway will be there, a roadway. It will be called the way of holiness. The unclean will not travel on it. It is for the one who walks the way. Fools will not go astray. No lion will be there. No ravenous beast will go up in it. They will not be found there. But the redeemed will walk there. The ransomed of Adonai will return and come to Zion with singing, with everlasting joy upon their heads. They will obtain gladness with joy, and sorrow and sighing will flee away. Isaiah 36. Sennacherib dares Jerusalem. Now it came to pass in the 14th year of King Hezekiah that Sennacherib of Assyria came up against the fortified cities of Judah and captured them. The king of Assyria sent Rabshakeh from Lachish to Jerusalem to King Hezekiah with a massive army. The Rabshakeh stood by the aqueduct of the upper pool in the highway of the washer's field, and Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, Shebna the scribe, and Joah, the son of Asaph, the recorder, came out to him. So Rabshakeh said to them, Say now to Hezekiah, thus says the king, the great king, the king of Assyria, what is this confidence you relied on? I say your strategy and strength for war are only for words of a lip. Who do you rely on now that you have rebelled against me? Behold, you rely on the splintered reed as a staff. Egypt, if a man leans on it, will go into the palm of his hand and pierce it. Thus Pharaoh, king of Egypt, is to all who trust in him. But if you say to me, we trust in Adonai our God, it is not he whose high places and altars Hezekiah has removed, and then said to Judah and Jerusalem, you must worship before this altar. So now make a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria. I'll give you 2,000 horses if you could put riders of your own on them. So how can you repulse a single lieutenant, the least of my master's servants? Yes, you are relying on Egypt for chariots and for horsemen. Moreover, have I now come up against this land to destroy it without Adonai's approval? Adonai said to me, go up against this land and destroy it. Then Eliakim and Shebna and Joah said to Rabshakeh, please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. Don't speak to us in the language of the Jews when the people in the wall are listening. But the Rabshakeh said, has my master sent me only to your master and to speak these words? Hasn't he sent me to the men who sit on the wall, who will eat their own waste and drink their own urine with you? Then Rabshakeh stood and cried with a loud voice in his language of the Jews, and said, hear the words of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, don't let Hezekiah deceive you, for he will not be able to deliver you. Nor let Hezekiah persuade you to trust in Adonai by saying, Adonai will surely deliver us. The city will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Don't listen to Hezekiah, for thus says the king of Assyria, make peace with me and come out to me. Then everyone will eat from his own vine and fig tree, and everyone will drink from water from his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and wine, a land of bread and vineyards. Beware that Hezekiah does not mislead you by saying, Adonai will deliver us. Has any one of the gods of the nations delivered his land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim? Indeed, when did they deliver Samaria from my hand? Who among all the gods of these lands have delivered their country out of my hand? So will Adonai deliver Jerusalem from my hand? But they were silent and did not answer him a word, for the king's commandment was, do not answer him. Then Eliakim, son of Hilkiah, who was in charge of the palace, and Shebna the scribe, and Joah, son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn, and told them the words of Rabshakeh. Isaiah chapter 37. Hezekiah tears his clothes. When King Hezekiah heard it, he tore his clothes, covered himself with sackcloth, and went to the palace of Adonai. Then he sent Eliakim, who was in charge of the palace, Shebna the scribe, and senior Kohanim, covered with sackcloth, to Isaiah the prophet, son of Amos. They said to him, thus says Hezekiah, this day is a day of distress, rebuke, and contempt. For children have come to the point of birth, that there is no strength for giving birth. Perhaps Adonai your God will heal the words of Rabshakeh, whom his master the king of Assyria has sent to mock the living God, and will rebuke the words of which Adonai your God has heard. So offer prayer for the remnant that is left. When the officials of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, Isaiah said to them, thus you will say to your master, Thus says Adonai, do not be afraid of the words you have heard, with which the boys of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I am putting a spirit in him, so that he will hear a rumor and will return to his own country. Then I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. Then the Rabshakeh returned and found the king of Assyria fighting against Libnah. He had heard he had withdrawn from Lachish. Now he had heard them say concerning Tirhakah, king of Ethiopia, saying, he has come out to fight against you. When he heard it, he sent the messengers to Hezekiah, saying, thus you will say to King Hezekiah of Judah, saying, do not let your God, in whom you trust, deceive you, saying, Jerusalem will not be given into the hand of the king of Assyria. Behold, you have heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all lands, utterly destroying them. So will you be delivered? Have the gods of the nations delivered those my fathers destroyed, Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, or the children of Eden who were in Telassar? Where is the king of Hamath, or the king of Arpad, or the king of the city of the Sepharvaim, of Hena, or Eva? Then Hezekiah received the letter from the hand of the messengers and read it. Then Hezekiah went up to the house of Adonai and spread it before Adonai. Hezekiah prayed to Adonai, saying, Adonai Zavat, God of Israel, who is enthroned upon the cherubim, you alone are God, all the kingdoms of the earth. You have made heaven and earth. Incline your ear, Adonai, and hear. Open your eyes, Adonai, and see. Listen to all the words of the Sennacherib, who was sent to mock the living God. It is true, Adonai, the kings of Assyria have devastated all the countries in their lands, and have cast their gods into the fire, for they were not gods but the work of human hands, wood and stone, so they have destroyed them. Now Adonai our God, save us from his hand, so that all the kingdoms of the earth may know that you alone are Adonai. Answered prayer and Sennacherib's demise. Then Isaiah son of Amos sent word to Hezekiah, saying, thus says Adonai the God of Israel, because you prayed to me about King Sennacherib of Assyria, this is the word that Adonai has spoken about him. The virgin daughter of Zion will despise you and mock you. The daughter of Jerusalem will shake her head at you. Whom did you taunt and blaspheme? Against whom did you raise your voice and haughtily lift your eyes? Against the Holy One of Israel. Through your servants you have blasphemed my Lord, and said, with many chariots I have climbed to the heights of the mountain, to the remotest parts of Lebanon. I cut down its tall cedars and choice cypress trees. I have gone to its farthest peak, its thickest forest. I dug and drank water, and with the sole of my feet I dried up all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard? I did it long ago. From ancient times I planned it. Now I have brought it to pass that you should turn fortified cities into heaps of rubble. Their inhabitants are weak-handed, shattered, and ashamed. They are like the grass of the field and green herb, like grass on roofs, scorched before it is grown. But I know you're sitting down, you're going out, and you're coming in, and you're raging against me, because you're raging against me, and your arrogance reached my ears. I will put a hook in your nose and my bridle in your lips, and I will turn you back by the way you came. So this shall be the sign to you. This year you will eat what grows by itself, in the second year what springs from that, but in the third year you will sow, reap, plant vineyards, and eat their fruit. The surviving remnant of the house of Judah will take root downward and bear fruit upward. For from Jerusalem the remnant will go out, and survivors from Mount Zion. The zeal of Adonai Zavat shall perform this. Therefore thus says Adonai concerning the king of Assyria, he will not come into the city, or shoot an arrow there, or come before it with a shield, or throw up a siege ramp against it. By the way that he came, by the shame he will return, and he will not come into the city. It is a declaration of Adonai. For I will defend this city to save it for my own sake and for my servant David's sake. And the angel of Adonai went out and struck down 185,000 men in the Assyrian camp. When the men rose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses. So King Sennacherib of Assyria withdrew and returned home and stayed in Nineveh. It also came to pass, as he was worshipping in the house of his god Nisroch, that his sons Adramelech and Sadaezer struck him down with the sword and escaped into the land of Ararat. Then his son Esarhaddon became king in his place. Isaiah 38. Put your house in order. In those days Hezekiah became mortally ill. So Isaiah the prophet son of Amos came to him and said to him, thus says Adonai, put your house in order, for you are dying and will not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face to the wall and prayed to Adonai. He said, please, Adonai, remember how I have walked before you in truth and with a whole heart, and have done what is good in your eyes. And Hezekiah wept bitterly. Then it came to pass, the word of Adonai came to Isaiah, saying, go and say to Hezekiah, thus says Adonai, the God of your father David, I have heard your prayer and I have seen your tears. Behold, I will add 15 years to your life. I will deliver you, this city, from the hand of the king of Assyria. I will defend this city. Now this will be the sign to you from Adonai, that Adonai will do this word he has spoken. Behold, I will cause the shadow on the stairs which went down to the sun and the sundial of Ahaz to turn back 10 steps. So the sun's shadow went back to 10 steps, and the sundial which it had gone down. A writing of King Hezekiah of Judah after his illness, when he recovered from his illness. I said, in the prime of my life, I am to enter the gates of Sheol. I am deprived of the rest of my years. I said, I will not see Adonai in the land of the living. I will look on humanity no longer among the inhabitants of the world. Like a shepherd's tent, my dwelling is pulled up and carried away from me. Like a weaver rolled up my life, he cuts me off from the loom. From the day until night, you make my end. I stilled my soul till morning. Like a lion, you will break all my bones. From day until night, you will make my end. Like a swallow or a crane, I whisper. I moan like a dove. My eyes are weary, looking upward. Adonai, am I oppressed? I am oppressed. Be my security. What should I say? For he has spoken to me. He himself has done it. I will wonder about all my years because of the bitterness of my soul. Adonai, by such things men live, and my spirit has life in them too. Restore me to health and let me live. Behold, it was for my own shalom that I have great bitterness. You have loved my soul out of the pit of destruction, for you have flung all my sins behind your back. For Sheol cannot thank you. Death cannot praise you. Those who go down to the pit cannot hope for your faithfulness. The living, they praise you as I do today. A father makes your faithfulness known to his children. Adonai will save me, so we will play my songs and stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of Adonai. And Isaiah had said, let them take a cake of figs and apply it to the boil, and he will live. Hezekiah said, what is this sign that I will go up to the house of Adonai? Isaiah 39, Hezekiah shows off. At that time, Merodach-Baladan, son of King Baladan of Babylon, sent letters and a present to Hezekiah, for he had heard that he had been sick and had recovered. Now Hezekiah was pleased with him, so he showed them his treasures house, the silver and the gold, the spices and the precious oil, and his whole armory, and everything that was found in his treasuries. There was nothing in his house or in all the dominion that Hezekiah did not show them. Then Isaiah the prophet came to King Hezekiah and asked him, what did these men say, and from where did they come to you? Hezekiah replied, they have come to me from a far country, from Babylon. Then he asked, what have they seen in your house? Hezekiah said, they have seen everything in my house. There is nothing among my treasuries that I didn't show them. Then Isaiah said to Hezekiah, hear the words of Adonai Zavat. Behold, days are coming when everything in your house which your fathers have stored up to this day will be carried to Babylon, nothing will be left, says Adonai. Moreover, some of your descendants who will issue from you, whom you will father, will be taken away and will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon. Then Hezekiah said to Isaiah, the word of Adonai which you have spoken is good, for he thought, for there will be shalom and security in my days.